I made 5% on my accounts with these two exact trades, one on US30 and the other one in AUDUSD. Hey guys, welcome to a new trade recap where I'll be basically showing you guys two trades I took very recently that with those two trades I was able to make 5% on my accounts. So one trade was on US30 and the other one was on AUDUSD. I'm basically doing this for you guys to be able to watch and understand the way I approach the markets, the way I analyze my pairs, and basically my strategy. So I want to start with the trade I took this Monday on US30. So what I did first was to analyze how my pair is doing in the higher time frame. So I usually start with the daily. So I saw that price was in this gap in the daily time frame. For me, it's very important gaps, liquidity grabs or sweeps, and also supply and demand zones. So price was holding this gap here in the daily time frame, which make me biased towards selling in my session. So I went to the 4-hour and I understood that price. So this was Friday's high. So basically the last week's high, right? So this was important to mention. So this was Friday's high. So after being able to identify that price already broke structure to the upside, and basically taking Friday's high, I was even more biased towards selling. I usually like price manipulating the high of a day before and basically going to the opposite side after doing that manipulation. So I went to the 1-hour and basically you guys can see there was 9 a.m. New York time. So I was still waiting for New York open. But like I said, this was Friday's high. So I wanted to see price taking the liquidity from here and then breaking structure to the downside. So if we move forward, so this is 9 a.m. we move forward and New York open was this candle here. If we can see this candle after we consider that price took this liquidity, this candle did a movement to the downside. Maybe in the 15-minute we can't see it very clearly, but in the 5 minutes we can see that there was a break of structure. So in this part, you guys might say, hey, Esteban, it's a break of structure, but the candle didn't close with the body, but it was basically like wicking that break of structure. I definitely understand that. But in my plan, usually when price takes liquidity from a day before, I consider it a valid break of structure. So price broke structure. I didn't put a sell limit immediately just because price didn't close below this low here, which, like, of course you guys think it made me a little bit iffy. So I wanted to see how price reacted around this area. I saw that price was literally holding this zone amazing. So what I did was to place my entry in this point, understanding that, like I said, first, price took Friday's high. Second, price was holding a gap in the daily. And third, we were completely bullish since Friday. So you can see that price was continuously going up since Friday. So I wanted to see a reversal based on my strategy. Also important to clarify, I usually use liquidity as target. So if we can see, you guys can observe all this liquidity here. So how I consider liquidity is basically moments or places in the markets where there's no movement. So if we can see, for example, this movement, there's a lot of movement which I don't consider a liquidity in any of these two zones. But if we see the difference between this movement to the downside, which has a lot of momentum, and we compare that momentum to this movement to the upside with no momentum at all, it's just like respecting a bullish trend, but there's no momentum to the upside, I just consider this as liquidity. Also, another way I consider my targets is by placing the Fibonacci levels. When we place the Fibonacci, we can see that price was in a premium zone. So I wanted to see in my session a discount towards a 60% discount. This is the 50%, this is the 60%. And you guys can see that this was in correct confluence based on this considering a liquidity for price to at least reach a 60%, taking all this liquidity sitting below these lows. So that was basically my analysis. So after understanding all of that and watching how price broke structure, I placed my entry around this area. I usually enter in limit orders, but because this case was a little bit iffy, I waited for price rejections and I entered in market sell. So around this area was my entry point with my stop loss around this area. So my target was for price to take this liquidity here for around a 1, 2, 3. And basically this is what happened. So that was the trade. It was a very nice trade. You guys may ask, and this exact point, I was kind of iffy because if we do again the 50% Fibonacci levels, you guys can see that before price reached my zone, it started rejecting to a 50%, which is also a very nice zone that usually price respects trend in the 50%. So when price starting doing this, and you guys can see that there was also a breakout structure to the upside. Of course, my stop loss was already in break even, but I was kind of like, okay, price might reverse now and it's gonna be a break even trade, but I still hold the trade because my strategy is based on taking my whole range or my whole liquidity. And if I placed my TP in this area, it's because there was a reason. So we have to follow our rules, our plans, and that's what I did. I hold the trade and it was a 1, 2, 3 trade. So for a 3% profit. So this was the trade I took on Monday. Okay guys, so the next trade happened on AUDUSD. It happened on the 2nd of May of 2024. So basically 1 week and a half ago. And it was a very nice trade as well on AUDUSD. So in the 1 hour when I started analyzing my pair, which was around 8 a.m. New York time, I saw that price was holding a supply zone in the daily time frame, that it was also a gap in the 1 hour, right? When that happened, price broke structure to the downside. So we can see the break of structure here. This was the first break of structure, right? And then it broke structure to the downside again to this zone, right? So based on my strategy, I was waiting for price to reverse to around a 60% area, which was around this. So basically at this part is 6:45, so it was early yet. But if we move forward, so this was more or less the beginning of my session. Let's move forward a little bit more. So this was the beginning of my session, so 8 a.m. New York time. So this was basically my Fibonacci levels. So I was waiting for price to reverse to this zone, so to the 60%. So that's where I placed my entry immediately with my stop loss around this highs here. It was a big stop loss just because sometimes price just wants to go even higher than the 60% and respect levels around this area. And actually that's what happened. So if we move forward, we can see that price reached my entry and it went very, very high. At this point, I said basically, okay, it's gonna be an instant stop loss, but price ended up rejecting, right? Oh, I forgot to mention my take profit was around this area here initially, right? Because I consider these two lows as liquidity. So that was basically my target, which was almost a 3% profit. But if we can see, price did the following. So I wasn't moving my stop loss to break even until price was able to break this structure here, right? That was basically my point where I was going to move my stop loss to break even. So price did the following. It reversed again. It retested this zone or this gap. It went even lower, and this was the crucial part of this trade. So sometimes we must stick to our rules like the trade before, but other times we have to analyze how the market or how price is moving depending in each situation. So we can see price started to lose power to the downside, kind of rejecting to the upside, to the downside, to the upside, to the downside. And then after breaking structure, we can see that it wicked to the upside, literally immediately after breaking this low. So at that moment, I was already at a 1 to 2. So after I saw this rejection, after taking this low, I immediately closed my trade manually for a 1 to 2 risk reward trade. So it was a nice trade as well. If I would have held the trade, this is basically what would have happened. Price literally reversed completely. So it would have been a stop loss. So yes, guys, those were the two trades I took that if we add them both together, it was around a 5% profit in my two accounts, in my two Profirm Challenge accounts. So they were great setups that had all my confluences, and I hope my explanation was very helpful for you guys to understand how I trade, how I approach the markets, and basically my strategy. So I'm gonna continue doing this, and moving forward, every time I take positive trades or negative trades, I will show you guys the reasons why I took each of those trades, as well as how I performed, how I executed, and my way I approached the market that day. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. And before going, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. So see you guys in the next video.